Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being prompt and getting lined up here. Please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. There will be some instructions in there shortly about one other interactive thing we have planned. We of course will start promptly at 4 o'clock, but feel free to look at our slideshow and introduce yourself in the chat. If you want to put your name and organization or affiliation, we certainly would appreciate it. Again, welcome everyone. We're so happy to have you with us this afternoon. We know we have people coming on. Please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat, and we'll have some other instructions in the chat about something to participate in just a few minutes. We of course will start promptly at 4, and we look forward to it. Welcome everyone. It's so nice to see everyone coming on. Feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat, as many of you have, and enjoy our slideshow. Of course, we will start promptly at 4, but wanted to have this time for everybody to get on and get situated before we welcome Congressman Raskin. See some of our board members have come on, and I see that several folks who teach or work with the ESOL programs around the county have come on. It's fantastic to see you all. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. So if you'd like to go to www.menti.com and use the code, these numbers and everything will be pasted into the chat for you. How does courage help you connect with your community? That's the question we'd like you to answer. This will create a word cloud. You can do it in one word or a short phrase. How does courage help you connect with your community? At www.menti.com. And there's the code. It will be pasted into the chat as well. 50689802. Again, welcome to everyone. I just see the numbers kind of keep climbing as everyone signs on. Thank you all so much for joining us this afternoon for MCAEL's program, Courage is Contagious. We're so lucky to have all of you and Congressman Jamie Raskin today. And Maureen Umeh from Fox5 will be serving as our MC. We'll get to all that in just a minute, but I really appreciate everyone being on with us today. Feel free to participate in the formation of the word cloud. The question is on your screen. Go to that website, and the information is conveniently located in your chat too.
Kathy, I'm
Yes.
getting a message that some people are having a little trouble connecting. Maybe we could have Monica send out the link one more time.
Sure. No problem. Again, welcome everyone. We will be starting in just a few moments. We want to make sure everyone can get logged on to our event, Courage is Contagious. Oh, look at these great words that are coming up. How does courage help you to connect with your community? Appreciate your differences, sharing, adventure, differences, relationships, getting vaccinated takes a lot of courage, absolutely. Courage to work in community, that's for sure. Again, welcome to everyone who has signed on. It's great to see everybody. We're looking forward to a great event today. Thanks for being here. Thanks for participating. Certainly promises to be really interesting to hear from Congressman Raskin this afternoon. I can't think of a more inspirational person that we've seen recently. Of course, we see inspiration every day in the work we do and the work that the MCAEL ESOL providers do, but certainly Congressman Raskin has certainly been in the spotlight. All right, so again, thank you for joining us. I see that we've hit the 4 o'clock marker. I hope people will still continue to get on. I know if folks had a little trouble, we're sending the link out again, but we have such a good crew. We'll go ahead and get started. I am Kathy Stevens. I'm the Executive Director of MCAEL. Welcome to Courage is Contagious, a conversation with Congressman Jamie Raskin. We are so thrilled to have you here today and just look forward to everyone being present. We wish we could be in person, but we are not. Learning English is key to connection. MCAEL is a coalition for connected community. And we know that communication grounds everything we do in our lives. And we are lucky today to have so many of you with us who do this work on a regular basis and to hear from an elected leader that we really believe supports, and we know he supports the work that we do. You'll hear from Congressman Raskin, and we hope for those of you who might be your first time connecting with MCAEL, that you will have a glimpse into our world, a little snapshot on our efforts to create lasting and important results for both our adult ESOL learners in our community and the people they touch, their neighbors, their children, the schools, the businesses, everything that underpins a strong community for all of us. So we're delighted to have Congressman Raskin. That's a mouthful, Jamie. Sorry about that. But first, we're going to see a short video that gives you just a little snapshot into the work that we do and the people we touch and why learning English is such an important foundation to so many other success factors in our communities. So again, thank you for joining us and enjoy the video. Yep. We're here to connect people to the issue of adult education. Why is it important? Why is adult English education important? And for so many of us, it really takes the courage and the empathy to see ourselves in another's shoes.
Courage is about the heart and having heart for the community. After all, this is what America is all about, you know, building on immigration.
I have get a big achievement or progress in communicating without fear, with courage. This gave me a confidence, so really has given me a great happiness.
If you're passionate about something, then courage does come along because you have to reinvent yourself.
Immigrants who come to these English programs are so brave and that they face so many challenges in their lives.
I think it takes courage to do the work in many ways. I think that you have to have a bravery or a belief in yourself that you're capable of teaching English. Yes, we speak it, but speaking English is not enough to be able to teach it to others.
A lot of us are afraid of we speak and the accent is funny and we frustrated because people don't understand. But actually we have a lot of things want to communicate with you, we like you, we want to share with you the story.
I've had students that have 2 jobs and kids at home and want to learn English. I have to make sure that I am giving them value, right? That I am, helping them, that I am providing what they need.
I decided to start studying English because I have to communicate with my kids, a school, doctor's appointment, dentist appointment. So it's very important to me understand very well to the people.
Most of us are immigrants at some point in our lives or in our history. My immigration story was over 100 years ago. It wasn't me, it was my grandparents. But I can see myself and my family's story in the immigrants we serve.
I love being part of making a difference. It's a great reward.
I love it for the learn English.
Taking English lesson really give me a great happiness because especially I can mention when I'm communicating with you guys, I'm free.
I hope you all got as much out of that as I clearly did when I was being filmed, and I did again just watching it. So thank you for your time and watching that. I want to welcome Maureen Umay now, who's our MC this afternoon. Maureen is a multiple award-winning television news anchor and reporter for Fox 5 Morning News, passionate advocate for issues pertaining to immigrants. Maureen herself was born in Nigeria, came to the United States with her family when she was 8, and certainly as an immigrant, she knows the story, she's lived the story, and she's dedicated to using her platform to help shed light and give voice to immigrant issues. So Maureen, welcome. I turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Welcome to everyone out there. That video, Kathy, it got me again. I've seen it twice now. I didn't want to watch it again because it's so emotional, but you're not the only one tearing up. I am a profuse crier, so that video tugs at the heart. But I think it also underscores the power of language and how everyone really just deserves to be understood. And that is what MCAEL has done. MCAEL plays a key role in that space. And with your help out there, they can continue to do that. Part of our mission today is to fundraise. And our goal is to help keep MCAEL in this community, serving this tapestry of people that we love so much, and to continue making Montgomery County the wonderful place it is to live. Your contribution certainly goes a long way in that. Before I go any further, good afternoon to all of you out there, and welcome to Courage is Contagious, a conversation with Congressman Jamie Raskin. I am your MC, Maureen Umay, and it is a great honor to introduce our keynote speaker today, Congressman Raskin, who I see there on the screen, and I'm like fanning out against, hi, how are you? Good to see you. I had the pleasure of meeting Congressman Raskin when he was a professor of constitutional law at American University. And we interviewed him several times at Fox 5. And what always struck me was not just his brilliance, but how he could take a very complicated issue and boil it down to a way that anyone could understand that. That is talent. The talent that many of you saw on display when really the world watched him as the House impeachment manager during the trial, and he just really masterfully executed that work, a glimpse into his brilliance that we have been so fortunate to have in our community, and now that we're sharing with the entire world. Congressman Raskin is a champion for truth. He's a champion for justice. He fights for the underdog, and he's been doing this for many, many years. He is in his 3rd term representing Maryland's 8th congressional district. And before that, he was a 3-term state senator in Annapolis and served as majority whip there. And this is the part that really resonates with MCAEL, because he earned a reputation for being a coalition builder in Annapolis. And as you know, that is what MCAEL does. MCAEL is about coalition building, because we know that coordination creates a better system for everyone. Congressman Raskin is a wonderful, wonderful neighbor. He is an even better friend. And again, it is my honor, it is my pleasure to introduce you today, Congressman Jamie Raskin. Welcome.
Thank you, Maureen, for such a warm and beautiful introduction. What a pleasure it is to be with you and with Kathy Stevens, my friend. I'm sending all my best to all my friends at MCAEL. I see Joan Schaefer there. Hello. Thank you for the magnificent work you do, for that beautiful video we just watched. And I'm delighted to be with you. I'm a little humbled and embarrassed to be, to be appearing at an event with that title. The thing is that I think at the moments in life when we act with the most courage, we're not really even aware of there being a choice. We just assume it's what we must do. And when people go out and they recognize that they've got to learn to speak English, which is a much more difficult thing for somebody who's my age than somebody who's in 2nd grade or 5th grade, they're generally doing it because they believe they've got to do it. And we can see all of the courage that goes into it. I mean, it's the courage to begin to speak really like a child or an infant, like from the very bottom up, when you might be a PhD in physics or a doctor from where you came from, but you're starting at the lowest level. And the courage there is the courage to make mistakes and to be embarrassed in public, and not always to be able to, command everybody's respect, and to, to acknowledge the difficulty of the situation. Oftentimes when people are coming to learn English here, they're also just learning to get to know the society for the first time. I mean, my family and I and my wife, Sarah, we went to live in France for a year when I was on sabbatical, when I was teaching law, Maureen. And I spoke French pretty well, okay. Sarah didn't speak French. The kids didn't speak French. But at the same time that everybody's being immersed in this foreign language and trying to learn it, we're also being immersed in a foreign society. And I remember, you know, in France, when you walk into a store or a restaurant, you have to say hello to the people who run it. You have to say, bonjour, monsieur, bonjour, madame. And if you just walk in and don't do it, they get a total attitude towards you, you know? And you can't even just say hello or hi. You can't say bonjour, salut. You've got to say bonjour, monsieur, bonjour, madame. And they're just things like that, you know, being in a new cultural context, you might not understand because you're coming from a completely different one. So oftentimes the people who are in the situation of, you know, your students are not just learning a new language, they're learning a whole new culture at the same time that they're also trying to support their families and work and, you know, do the bureaucracy that just goes with living. So I think that there's really great courage there. I mean, I've started to think about courage as really the willingness to confront totally new contexts and situations and to have tolerance for knowing that you're going to be in a situation where you're going to make mistakes. I mean, you know, when we, you know, Kathy asked me to think about the impeachment trial in this context, and I had never been to the US Senate before. And I know that might seem weird to people who, you know, who don't work up on Capitol Hill. You just think Congress, the House, the Senate, everybody's all mixed together, but it's not like that at all. It's two totally different cultures. The House of Representatives, which is like a big, rowdy, turbulent place where we don't have assigned seats or desks or anything. In the House, you just go, you do your thing, you leave. You know, in the Senate, which is, you know, very prim and proper, and everybody's got their own desk and it's organized and everything. And I'd never even been there before. And I was walking into a situation where I didn't know kind of the culture and the rules. I was trying to study up. And then two, I knew that if not half, somewhere near half of the people in there really wanted me and our team to fail as much as possible. I mean, they wanted to bring us down, that they were sworn to be impartial jurors to render impartial justice. But, you know, life being what it is and politics being what it is, there were some people there not rooting for us. So I think that you have to have a lot of the courage to enter a situation like that comes from having confidence in that what you're doing is the right thing to do, or at least the right thing for you to be doing. Do you guys want me to just keep talking? Because I can keep talking all day. I mean, I used to be a senator when I was in Annapolis.
You know, we really wanted this to be a free-flowing conversation to get questions in. You did actually answer one of the questions that one of our earlier attendees has sent in when they asked, how did you find the courage, you know, to muster up the courage to serve as the House impeachment manager? Where did you get that from? Who were some of your role models that have exemplified this kind of courage for you? So if you could maybe expound on that with this question.
Well, I appreciate that. You know, we had just gone through this terrible trauma in our family. My son, Tommy, had taken his own life on the very last day of 2020, December 31st. And so it was a period of intense grief and agony and sadness for us. But I felt like Tommy, who he was, you know, he was battling depression, but in general, Tommy was somebody who acted with enormous courage in speaking the truth. And I knew it's what he would want me to do. And I felt he was with me. I literally felt him like in my chest and in my heart during that time. So he was a really important inspiration for me. But we also come from such a wonderful community, Maureen, and I knew that everybody was behind me. I mean, we got the most wonderful letters and messages and banana bread and chocolate chip cookies and people just standing with us the whole time. And, you know, I had been battling the lawlessness and the corruption and the violence of the last administration for 4 years. And I knew people were with me. And I just felt it was too late to turn back. I had to keep going. it would have been harder to turn back than to keep going and to see it through.
I love that answer. And you talk about Tommy, and I can say from the bottom of my heart, it really, it touched something in all of us. The letter that you and your family wrote was just so beautiful, so beautifully done. But I would be remiss if I didn't say that was something that struck me profoundly. And thank you for being so transparent, because it really did help a lot of people. So from my vantage point, just wanted to say thank you for that. I want to pivot and ask some more questions here that people had sent in. One person wanted to talk about politics here in Montgomery County, saying, given that those of us here in Montgomery County are represented by Democrats, both in the State House and Congress, and given that Maryland has strong voter protection laws, what can we do to strengthen voting protection in other parts of the country?
Well, that's an awesome question. Of course, your Maryland delegation has been in the forefront of pushing for H.R. 1, which in the Senate is called S1, or the title of it is the For the People Act, and it would get rid of gerrymandering by requiring independent, nonpartisan redistricting commissions. It would stop all the voter suppression tactics and shenanigans by having universal voter registration. So it's not a game whether or not you can get registered, and to implement a number of other nationwide voting reforms like that. We passed it in the House. Unfortunately, it's stuck in the Senate, where there's a fight about what to do over the filibuster, because as has happened in other periods in American history, the filibuster is being used to prevent people's voting rights from being implemented. And now what we're seeing across the country is literally hundreds. I think the number is now over 370 bills being introduced at the state level to take away people's voting rights, to get rid of weekend voting, to get rid of early voting, to make it a crime in Georgia. They just signed this into law to give somebody a bottle of water or a chocolate chip cookie while they're waiting in a 6-hour line to go vote. That's a crime that can get you sent to jail for a year in Georgia right now. So they want to make it as tough as possible, and they want to create a sense of fear and anxiety around the act of voting, despite the fact that there are almost no cases of that kind of voter fraud. I mean, there's a few. There was a guy who was just prosecuted for murder, for murdering his own wife. And he voted for her after he murdered her for Trump, because he said he thought that Trump needed the votes. I mean, that's obviously wrong and outrageous, and he was found, he should be prosecuted, but that's not a reason to take away everybody else's right to vote and make it more difficult to register. But so I think we need to keep the pressure on, let those of us in the Maryland delegation know this is really meaningful to the people here. Improve our practices as much as possible. Let's get everybody registered to vote here, make sure everybody signs up for the census when they're asked to do it. We just went through that. These acts of civic and political participation are essential to make everybody visible and to make democracy work. Because if everybody's not participating, it means smaller and smaller groups can control everything, and we saw on January 6th what that would mean. If you have a small group in the country that thinks that they can use violence to intimidate everybody else. And then, our recent immigrants can tell us more than almost anybody else what that means around the world. If you don't have America fighting for strong democracy and human rights, what's going to happen in China and in Russia? And we have every dictator and kleptocrat and bully and tyrant hoping for and working for the failure of American democracy. They don't want us out there as a champion of people's human rights and democracy, whether you're talking about Putin in Russia or Orban in Hungary or Duterte in the Philippines or El-Sisi in Egypt, you name it. I mean, there are people who want to use their governments as an instrument of private self-enrichment and tyranny over everybody else. And that's antithetical to what's best about the American model. We don't claim to be perfect, but if you look at the development of American democracy, it's gotten better and better and better, inclusive of more and more people. And Tocqueville said, another, immigrant visitor who came over to America and wrote about us, he said, in Democracy in America, you can tell that in America, democracy is either always growing and expanding or it's shrinking. and it's shriveling away. So it's up to us. Are we going to make it grow? Or are we going to let it disappear?
Congressman, we've got questions coming in, a rapid fire here. I want to take this one up from an attendee right now who says, what can we do to encourage a level of altruism amongst Americans?
Oh, that's a beautiful question. I mean, well, to my mind, the main thing with altruism is to recognize it. People don't want to get paid in money for altruism. The truly noble amongst us, like Tommy Raskin, who used to just go and give blood and not tell anybody about it, they don't even want recognition. But most of us, normal, mortals, I mean, pretty much would like to be recognized. So we got to recognize it. I'm sure MCAEL is great at that. There's so many people who volunteer to tutor and to work and to recognize people for it. That's legit for people to want to be recognized for the time that they put in. And so I like that. I spend a lot of time going to the dinners and the Zoom sessions honoring people who did this or that. I think that that's important. I mean, recognition is one of the things that's really poorly distributed in our society, in addition to wealth and income. But recognition, certain people like me, I get recognized a lot. I mean, when you get elected to office, you get recognized for not even doing anything. People give you an award just because they want your vote on something, So I only do it now when I think there's something meaningful behind it, like there is today, because I think it's very meaningful what you guys are doing.
Thank you for that. Another question, how do we convince people not involved with non-English speakers that it takes courage to come to the US?
Gee, yeah, I mean, I've been down in the border, and I mean, this is a rare border on Earth. There are not too many. If there are any other, there might not be any other examples of very poor countries where there's access to a very wealthy country. And so that there's going to be issues there, but there's such desperate poverty and such desperate violence taking place in Central America right now. People don't want to leave their homes. People don't want to leave their communities. I mean, people make fun of me. I've been here my whole life. I go to a high school reunion or something, and everybody's, flying in from, Zurich or Hollywood or New York. And they're like, where do you live? I'm like, over there. Where do you work? Over there. Like, I never went anywhere. I love it here. But most people, I mean, even if they're willing to leave their hometown, they generally don't want to leave their own country, And I think that's true of people from Salvador and Guatemala and Honduras. And those societies need help. And so I think we need to be aware of the conditions that are leading people to want to come here. At the same time, America, to me, is a beacon to people on Earth. I mean, when I go back and I read what the framers of the country said and the founders and Tom Paine, to me, it's so moving. I mean, Tom Paine said that America would become an asylum to humanity, not an insane asylum, mind you, but an asylum for freedom, for people fleeing from political oppression, religious oppression, economic exploitation. That's who we are, right? It's a society that's open and it's boundless. And the people who come here are the ambitious people, the restless people, the people who want something greater for their families and for their kids. And so we want us to be that kind of land of opportunity. And you know what? These days, we need the immigration. I mean, our birth rate, the birth rate around the world is falling precipitously. And, those of us who are thinking about retiring one day would feel better if there were more people working,
Someone asked this question, what gives you hope today for our country? As many of us in our ways work to advance democratic values, it is often hard to be hopeful given actions such as voter suppression laws that you talked about earlier.
Well, that's a wonderful question. My dad used to say that when everything looks hopeless, you're the hope, and I'm finding hope all over the place, especially among the young people. When I look at my kids, Hannah and Tommy and Tabitha, their generation and their friends, this is a generation that really has gotten beyond racism. And they've gotten beyond sexism and misogyny and anti-Semitism and anti-immigrant bashing and all of that stuff. Like, they really have. And I mean, unfortunately, they've also gotten beyond grammar a little bit. I think part of that is, texting and everything. But in general, their values are exceptional. They're extraordinary. So, like, I have great hope about where we're going for the future. They also are totally serious about climate change. For them, it's not a matter of, well, are you going to choose to believe science or not? They believe in the science. They take science seriously. So I think that the new generation that is coming up all over the place has so much to offer us. And what I want to do in my time in public service is to put the structures into place, like the political structures relating to voting rights, the infrastructure pillars with investment in infrastructure in a green way, like the whole Green New Deal idea, to put those things in place. So when that generation comes into power, they are able to get to work and to mobilize the sentiment of their generation to make the changes that need to be made. But it's obviously a struggle right now, because there are a lot of people who want to hang on to old ways of doing things. I mean, we've seen a resurgence of racism. We've seen a resurgence of anti-Semitism. We've seen a resurgence of all the immigrant bashing. And we also see a denial of science, whether it's related to COVID-19 or it's related to climate change.
Right. Another question, and to the end of what you're talking about, someone did ask, what can we do here in Montgomery County to combat the rise in hate crime and racism that we see in communities, even here in Montgomery County?
Well, I mean, but my general answer on that kind of stuff is, I guess, twofold. One is we build up community, you strengthen community, and you make it stronger at every level. And then you use the presence of community and the investment in community to identify problems quickly. I mean, the kids who end up committing hate crimes and, scrawling swastikas on churches or synagogues or what have you, the ones who, pick on other kids based on race, like, somebody should have been able to identify that a few years before what was happening. Right? There was something going on with that kid before. So I think that, we just have to strengthen the bonds of community and take care of people. And, even the people who do those things, they should be prosecuted for them and put in jail if they commit crimes. But at the same time, I want to say that there's just a lot of confusion and propaganda, and we got to make sure that people are not victims of disinformation on social media and they end up believing nonsense. I'm working on a book right now. I think I told this to Kathy, but I'm writing a book about Tommy and about January 6th and everything that's happened with us. And I've looked into some of the other people who were involved in the day's events. There was a woman who was one of the rioters who tried to punch out one of the windows to get in the House of Representatives, who was shot and killed, named Ashley Babbitt. And it was her shooting that probably kept the House of Representatives from being overrun, and so it was probably a necessary thing, but it's a terribly sad thing. She was a big Obama supporter during the Obama administration. And then some things happened in her life and she became a Trump supporter, and she started getting deeper and deeper into social media and QAnon. And she just started believing that. And the next thing you know, the president's telling her to come to Washington and stop the steal. And the Democrats are trying to steal the election, and Joe Biden really lost. And she believed all of that. And she ended up in a terrible situation and did things she shouldn't have done and ended up losing her life. I mean, that's just a tragedy, for everybody in her family. Like, how did we get to that point in America? So the antidote to it is exactly what you guys are doing. We've got to build up the fundamental strength of the community. And that's, we need to reach out. And I'm glad we're coming out of COVID-19, because people also need some human touch too. It's not enough just to be online. For some reason, there's something about the online experience that just drives a lot of people to negativity and irrational thinking.
Oh yeah, we've sadly seen far too much of that. Keeping with the theme of communities, another person asked this, some folks have been disenfranchised from full participation in our communities. What is one change you might suggest to make government more accessible? How should leaders stand up for language access?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think we're going to be able to use the results of the census in 2020 to get a much better sense of the mosaic of our community and, what are the linguistic population centers that we need to be focused on. Because I think, that was a genius thing that the framers put into the Constitution, the idea of the census, so that we can take a snapshot of who we are at particular moments, and then we can act on that. So I'm certain, I certainly hope that our leaders in Montgomery County Council, and the county executive, Mark Elridge, will work to analyze the results of the census to see who's living where, and then to do an inventory of what kind of language services are necessary.
Congressman Raskin, before we continue, I want to ask you, can we keep you a little longer? Because we do have a lot of questions. They really run the gamut in terms of what people want to know about, from the travel ban to being a blue dot in a red state. How do we incorporate volunteerism? So a lot of questions coming in here. If you don't mind, if we keep you just a tad longer. And
yes, you can keep me for another 10 minutes. I've got something at 4:45 I got to get to.
All right, perfect. I'm glad to have that definitive time. Okay, so one of the questions here is, do you think we should get rid of the filibuster or modify it? I know you spoke a little bit about this, so we don't have to talk about it at any length, but someone wanted to know that. Do you think
the filibuster is not in the Constitution? It's made up. Arguably, it's unconstitutional, because what it does is it says that instead of a majority of the Senate getting to pass legislation, you need a super majority. You need not 51 votes, but 60 votes. And that, that's a tremendously disruptive thing in a democracy. Our Constitution protects both minority rights, which is what the Bill of Rights is about, but it also protects the right of the majority to rule and to govern, and that's being frustrated by the filibuster. So I think that that's a very serious problem, and I do think and trust and hope that we'll be able to confront that and get rid of it. It's been removed for judicial appointments, which is why in the last administration, several hundred new judges were appointed by President Trump at the district court level, at the appeals court level, at the Supreme Court level. My friends in the GOP had no problem with that, using that to their advantage. So I hope that we could use it to protect people's voting rights under H.R. 1, or to mandate a universal violent criminal background check before selling people guns, which is our H.R. 8, which is supported by more than 95% of the American people, but they still won't allow a vote on it, and because they're filibustering it. So yeah, I think that's a real problem.
Do you have any information on the travel ban? This attendee says, living in Montgomery County for almost 4 years, we're still unable to travel to France to visit our families due to this travel ban. Do you have any information on that?
I don't know particularly which provision is blocking their ability to travel, but we are working hard to try to undo every aspect of those stifling executive orders that were put into place by President Trump. They make no sense. I mean, it's impossible for people to travel depending on the country. It's impossible for a lot of people to get back and forth for funerals, for weddings, for other important kinds of family events. It makes no sense. And, Maureen, who's come to see me a lot over the course of the last 4 years during the Trump administration, was, our friends from Marriott and other people in the hotel industry who couldn't stand these terrible anti-immigrant orders, because the message got sent through all of those actions to the rest of the world that America is closed for business and closed for travel. And even before COVID-19, it was just totally ripping our hotel and hospitality industry. So I like the fact that President Biden is saying that America is open to the world. Come and see us and meet our people. And we've got a lot to be proud of here. We've got extraordinary natural sites and historical sites and great people that you're going to want to meet, you know.
Do you think U.S. free speech jurisprudence may need to be revisited in view of how in the past 4 years it has enabled widespread and dehumanizing and vilifying rhetoric and discourse targeting immigrants?
Well, yeah, I mean, thank you for that really important question. You know, the Constitution does not protect incitement to violence or incitement to insurrection. That was part of what I had to argue during the impeachment trial, you know, where I was saying, first of all, you don't treat the president of the United States like any bum on the street. Okay, it's true, any bum on the street can start mouthing off about other countries and other people and other parties and stuff. But the president is different. The president is bound by an oath of office where he's sworn to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and not to cooperate with them. And so, you know, somebody on the street might be able to say, you know, this is a terrible form of government, go and, you know, let's overthrow the Congress or whatever. But the president of the United States can't do that without being impeached. And that president did get impeached for doing it. I want to be clear about that. And there was also a vote of 57 to 43 to convict him, which was the most bipartisan vote in American history. There have only been 4 Senate impeachment trials in history: Andrew Johnson, Bill Clinton, and the 2 Trump trials. And that was by far the most sweeping and bipartisan vote, the highest number of senators who ever voted to convict. So in that sense, it was historic. I think we convicted him in the eyes of history, and we convicted him in the court of public opinion. So you got to look at the context when it comes to free speech. In general, people are allowed to make jerks and idiots out of themselves by saying things that, you know, we wouldn't want said of our families or our friends or our communities or ourselves. I mean, that's just part of the price of freedom. In general, walking down the street, people can say that kind of stuff. On the other hand, the minute that it becomes violence or harassment, a whole different story. And so we've got good laws on that. And the real thing is, if you can't get the law involved, you can at least get other people involved, because a lot of people around here are in Montgomery County because they love the diversity and the multiculturalism and the fact that we stand together. I mean, we are really a very special and extraordinary place. And nobody should be subjected to harassment, hostility, much less violence on the streets or in public places.
I know you have to go, so unfortunately, I'm going to ask you one last question. For those of you who did not have your question answered, we're going to try to get them to Congressman Raskin's office. So perhaps him and his staff could help address it that way. And we thank you for even putting out your questions. We appreciate your contribution today. Congressman Raskin, last question. Will you run for Senator Ben Carson's seat should he retire?
You didn't tell me I was getting political questions out here.
I had to do it.
Thank you, whoever asked me for it. You know, I am not one of those politicians who's had some like 20-year plan or 30-year plan to do this or that. You know, I'm very much an accidental politician. I'm basically a teacher. You know, the funniest thing is when I'm on the floor of the Congress or in committee, and then the other members start calling me professor because of the way I talk. I say, well, as the professor says, you know, and you can take the professor out of the classroom, but you can't take the classroom out of the professor. But the truth is, I don't know. I mean, you know, we've been rocked in our family. We've been rocked by so much trauma, private trauma and public trauma. And I'm writing my book and I'm trying to see my way through to whatever is going to come next. But I love so much serving the people of Montgomery and Frederick and Carroll in the House of Representatives. I love it. And I love being in public service. I mean, it's the great honor of a lifetime. So I don't know what is next for me, but stay tuned. And you guys will be the first to know. I'll come and I'll do it in English.
Breaking news, first to know. Congressman, you are, as always, brilliant. I can listen to you talk all day. You always leave with something. You're always so thoughtful and meaningful in the things you say. And thank you for your service. Montgomery County and really our country is a much better place with you in it. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. I know you've got to get going, so we'll let you go. But
thank you, Maureen, and thank you, Kathy, and thank you, Joan, and thank you to everybody out there. And when Congress reopens, everybody come on down and see me in my new office in the Rayburn House office building, all right?
It's a day. Thank you,
All best.
Congressman.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And attendees, thank you for staying with us. If we did not get to your question, as you saw, the time was just going in Congressman Raskin's office. They actually gave us a much smaller window. So thank you to him for agreeing to stay a bit longer. But please make your questions be known. We'll try to get it to his office, and absolutely hope that you get the response that you're looking for if you didn't hear it within the many questions that we were able to get in today. I think that is it on this end. Again, I just want to thank everyone who did log on. And remember, MCAEL made this possible. MCAEL is part of the tapestry of Montgomery County. And without them, we would be a little bit of a more dim place. So your support clearly helps. Tell a friend. If they don't know about MCAEL, go on their website. This coalition building, this is what it's all about. Let's get together. Let's preserve our community. Let's expand our community and give everyone the voice that they should have. With that said, I want to introduce MCAEL board member Joan Schaefer, who has some closing remarks for us today. Joan?
Now you can hear me, I hope. Thank you so much, Maureen, and thank you to everyone who made today's event so special, starting with Congressman Raskin, Maureen, you, our video participants and National Capitol Video, our planning committee, Kathy Stevens and her fabulous MCAEL staff, and most importantly, thank you to our amazing network of ESOL partners. I joined the MCAEL board because I was acutely aware that, like so many of us, my grandparents came to this country with limited education, no money, and no English. It was only through the acquisition of language skills that they were able to integrate into their community. And Congressman Raskin talks so poignantly about the importance of community today. And in turn, for their children, and their grandchildren to thrive. If you don't know MCAEL, but the immigrant story resonates with you, please take time to learn more about our organization. And there's 3 ways that we can come up with right now for you to think about. You can learn more about us by following our social media and signing up for our newsletters. You can invite MCAEL to present to your organization. You can participate with us. You can train to become an ESOL instructor. You can join one of our committees. You can be part of our grants evaluation panel or our board. And of course, if you're a language learner here in the county, sign up with one of our partners for our great English language classes. And lastly, you can give. You can give your time, your talent. You can participate in our signature spelling bee event. You can do that as a sponsor or at least as an attendee. You can include us in your employee giving program, or you can make us your designee for Amazon Smile. And finally, you can text the word connector, that's connector, to 44321, connector to 44321, and it will reply with our donation link. Thank you so much for attending this today, and we hope to see you in person next time. Hope every one of you has a great evening.
Thank you, Joan. Thank you, Maureen. And thank you to everyone for attending today. We really appreciate your time, and what an inspiration it is to listen to Congressman Raskin and understand about community and connecting community. Really resonated with me in terms of learning English and being able to connect. So we appreciate everyone's time and support. And with that, we will allow you to get on with your evenings and enjoy the nice weather. Thank you, everybody.